This video will show you how to replace a controller on a RadCity 4 and RadCity Step-Thru 3. You will need a Phillips head screwdriver, a 4mm Allen wrench for RadCity Step-Thru models, a flathead screwdriver, flat side cutters, a few zip ties, and the replacement controller from Rad Power bikes. Get the bike ready for maintenance. Turn off the bike, remove the battery, and press and hold mode to discharge remaining power. We'll start by accessing the wiring harness connector, which is located inside of the down tube. Start at the bottom of the down tube and snip the zip ties securing the cables. Turn the handlebar to the rider's right side, then gently feed the wiring harness into the top of the down tube to create cable slack. At the bottom of the down tube, use a flathead screwdriver and gentle pinching movements to carefully unseat the rubber grommet. Be careful not to damage the grommet, cables, or frame. Use caution to avoid unplugging the wiring harness connector while it's still in the frame, and gently pull the connector out of the opening while feeding more cable into the top of the down tube. Unplug the connector by pulling directly apart without twisting. Unplug all remaining connectors from the controller. Snip zip ties as needed and pull each side of the connector directly apart without twisting to unplug. On a RadCity Step-Thru, remove the 3 battery tray mounting bolts using a 4mm Allen wrench. Set the bolts aside and tilt the tray away from the seat tube to access the controller mounting bolts. Use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the controller mounting bolts. Set the 4 bolts and 2 mounting brackets aside. Remove the old controller and recycle it according to local rules. Locate the new controller and orient it so the mounting holes face the front of the bike and the cables point downward. Place the new controller on the frame as shown. Pass the cables coming out of the bottom of the controller in between the chainstays. To secure the controller to the bike, place a mounting bracket into position on the frame so it's aligned with the top mounting holes on the controller, then thread the bolts in by hand. Repeat with the other bracket, tightening partway. Ensure the controller is centered, and tighten the 4 bolts evenly, alternating between bolts about every half turn, moving in an X pattern. Plug in the connectors, starting with the wiring harness connector. Pass the connector end through the grommet, then line up the internal notch and pins and external arrows and press directly together without twisting to connect. Double check that the wiring harness connector is fully secure, then pass the connector through the lower cable opening and into the down tube. Reinstall the grommet starting with the long side of the grommet at the top or bottom of the opening, then gently work the grommet around the opening until it's fully seated. Plug in the remaining connectors. Locate the matching connector ends and carefully align the internal notch and pins and external arrows and press directly together without twisting to connect. At the top of the down tube, gently pull the wiring harness cable out while feeding more cable into the lower cable opening to create cable slack at the front of the bike. On a RadCity Step-Thru, reposition the battery mounting tray against the front of the seat tube. Thread in the 3 bolts by hand and then use a 4mm Allen wrench to evenly tighten the bolts. Check that the battery tray is secure. Replace any snipped zip ties and trim them to be flush and smooth. Check that all cables are free from any moving parts. Rotate the handlebar to ensure it can move freely and that there is enough cable slack. Reinstall the battery, test the bike fully before riding, and ride rad.